Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pulls Pod post Christmas. Hope you all had a very good holiday period and New Year as well. Joining me today, we have Daniel Cooper, who appeared a few weeks ago, and James, new to the pod. Hello, gentlemen. How are you both?
Not bad, mate. How are you?
Excellent, not too bad. Thank you very much. And James, some good news for you just before Christmas, and hopefully all's going well there as well.
Yes, absolutely, mate. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yeah, really good news before Christmas. The missus due a baby in mid-June, so yeah, something to look forward to. Other than hopefully a playoff promotion push, you know. But yeah, exciting times definitely. Yeah, over the moon.
Excellent. So let's get into it. As we've mentioned previously, there was no episode last week because of Christmas falling on a Wednesday, and then the Boxing Day game happening on a Thursday. So it's a little bit difficult to work something out there. But we're back now, and we've had three games since our last episode. The game at home to Yeovil, game away at Gateshead, and the game Wednesday just gone against Oldham at home. So, gentlemen, it was ups and downs, more ups than downs. A win, a loss, and a win. If either of you want to take this first, is that what we could have expected from the three games?
I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think that the best I thought we could have hoped for was 4 points out of Gateshead, Oldham, and of course we got Barnet coming up. So Gateshead, Oldham, Barnet. I think 4 points, great. But I think as well what this has done is it sort of give us a free hit going towards Barnet because we know this is the little tough run that we've got, and then we've got a lot more favourable fixtures over the next sort of 6 weeks ish. So I think coming out of that Oldham game, we should all be really, really pretty much over the moon.
yeah, completely agree with that. I mean, you look at the games that we've had in the run that like we've been on as a club the last couple of weeks, and you think going into some of them games, you look at it and you think, yeah, maybe I'd take a point here, I'd take a point there. But I think the players have sort of proved it to themselves that they are more than capable of getting the results when it does matter. Um, I mean, everyone knows Gateshead's not been a happy hunting ground for pools. You know, it's we've never really seemed to get much there. And I think to get the three goals, sort of, I'd say in a sense maybe flatter us, but you know, it's shown that the team is turning a corner as such. Because you look at where they might have been at the start of the season, and if you went into that Gateshead game, you might think, you know, we're going to get a good hiding here. But it's it's a nice change, and like I say, going into these games that we've had, difficult fixtures, like at the start of the season, you'd probably dread. You're going into games now thinking, actually, do you know what? Let's give this a good go. And but like I say, they're proving that they're more than capable, which is the start of something, which is always good. So hopefully that continues these next few games. And Barnett's not an easy game either. You know, they're hopeful of finishing the top of the league as well. So we'll see.
We said a few weeks ago on the podcast, when I've had other people on, the six games leading up to Christmas and including Oldham and Gateshead, of course, it was a very tough period, as you said. And we did mention at the time, one of the things we mentioned is if you can win your home games and any away points would be a bonus. That's basically how it shook out, really, because if you think about it, we've had Southend away, which we got a point from. We've won our two home games. Unfortunately, we did lose at Gateshead, but it's that sort of form. 7 points from 12 is not a bad return considering the teams we've faced.
Well, I think you know what surprised me the most is the manner of how we've lost the two away games. We're talking York as well as Gateshead.
Yeah.
I think it's shown that we're still competing. I mean, I think York at the time we'd played them only conceded nine all season. Then we went and put three past them, and of course, whether we deserved the three goals at Gateshead or not, that's a different story. But we then put three past Gateshead, so it is high scoring. It's not a case of last year when we went to Gateshead and got turned over 7-1. It was always, although they probably were the better side, it was still a contest, which I think is a testament to how far we've come from last year as well.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with that. I mean, you look on the surface of it, and they it's not just the results that are changing; it's the performances as well. You know, some players who the start of the season you were looking at and you were thinking, "Oh my God, like they're nowhere near where they should be." I mean, the likes of Ferguson, for me, over the last few weeks, has totally transformed himself. You know, he's still not completely faultless. Don't get me wrong, but he's starting to show where he was maybe sort of a couple of years ago, and like I say, it's one of these things. I think there's a bit of belief there now as well, whereas before they were totally, totally on their feet and sort of out of their depth really, and thinking, oh well, where do we go from here? And it's nice to see players that we know are capable of doing a job at this level actually starting to turn up, and hopefully they can keep doing that and keep impressing us, and it's sort of, I don't know how to put this really, it sort of lured us into a false insecurity, I think, the first bit of the season, when you're looking at these players and thinking, oh God, well, you were all right last season, what's gone on this year? And yeah, it's the Lenny Lawrence effect, I think, isn't it, starting to come back to light and give everyone a bit of a lease of life, which is good.
I think there's one player in particular that stood out to me. You were talking about players that maybe weren't at the level they should have been. Luke Waterfall. I think since he's come back into the squad after Billy Sass-Davies went out after York, I think he's been absolutely brilliant. I mean, the Gateshead game where there was a couple of goals in there that was a bit sloppy, but I think on a whole, he's just been a completely different player to the sort of centre back we saw when Sal was still in charge, who was probably overly aggressive. I think he's toned that down now and is back to being what we saw from him last season when he first came in, which is that dominant in the air, old school centre back. And I think that's a massive piece of the puzzle at the back as well, which has sort of allowed us to be a lot more solid.
Yeah, completely agree with that. I mean, you look at the Pools defence now, and you think you're looking at Parks and Waterfall as that central partnership. When's the last time, as a Pools fan, that you felt completely confident in a centre half pairing week in, week out? There was always a sort of roulette of, one drops in, one drops out, one comes in, and I think with Dodds, Parks, Waterfall, and Ferguson, you've got that setback four now, which, yeah, it's not, again, not faultless, and there is gaps that do appear every now and then, but you're seeing at the Oldham game at the weekend, Parks and Waterfall would have headed a fridge if it came their way. It was, it was good to see, some good old fashioned, centre half play, and I never felt like there was any danger, if you know what I mean. Obviously the goal that Oldham scored was ridiculous. But apart from that, you look at that and you think we've defended, unbelievably for the full game.
Taking the bias out of it, which one was the better goal, Gary Medine against Gateshead or Josh Lundstrom on Wednesday?
I mean, for me, Lundstrom, hands down, is the one. It's very, very rare that in a game I'll stop what I'm doing and completely just applaud. And what else can you do? There's nothing to say. I don't know if Danny will agree with me there, but just ridiculous.
It was a silly goal. You can't really do anything to stop that. I mean, I think it was very highly against the run of play. I mean, we should have been up probably 1 or 2 by that point, but take nothing away from it. The technique was brilliant, and it was just one of those where you just can't do anything about it.
Yeah, completely.
He won't catch a ball better than that all season, will he? They absolutely
Off
flew into the top corner.
Yeah, it's one of them, isn't it? I think you see it on the telly and stuff like that, and you say it yourself. But literally, as that ball dropped to him, you knew where it was going. It was destined, wasn't it? And after Smith, bless him, had a go to save it, but absolutely nowhere near it.
He got nowhere near it.
Nowhere near. And it was one of them, isn't it? I think you just applaud it, don't you? You can't do anything about it. So yeah.
To be fair to Adam Smith, speaking of the goalkeeper, did you think when Fondop picked up that ball and put it towards the top corner that that was in? Because until Smith picked that ball out, it was a fantastic save. It just felt like that was the old boy coming back again, as we've seen previously this season with most old players coming back to haunt us. How good was that save?
I think not even that chance. I think as soon as I seen him warming up, I thought, oh God, here we go. It's the second he took his training top off to come on, sent to a couple of lads, I was like, what is it? I just can't be bothered with this here, and he's going to score. And then the second he got that chance, I was like, oh no, because I was right behind it as he hit it, and it was flying, and I thought, oh no. And then Smith's just clawed it out over the bar, and I was like, oh.
What a save.
Yeah, ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But no, it's a weird one with Fondop, because when he was at Pools, he looked like he didn't have a clue what football was. I genuinely think I could have went in and 20 plus stone and done a better job than him. And it's It's mad. But you look at him now, and he was winning headers, he was bringing the ball down, linking up with his teammates, and I've never ever seen that from him. So whether it was flattering to deceive, because I think yourself and Danny will remember Blackpool at home when he got through 1-on-1. I have never ever seen anything like that in my life. The town would have partied if he scored that night.
I've never,
I think they had the champagne on ice. It was. I mean, it's a bit of a discredit to the keeper to say it was a nailed on goal because it was a 1-on-1 in effect. But it's just the sort of thing where you think when a forward goes through, he has to score. He absolutely has to score. And then, I mean, can you even remember what he actually did? Because I just have a vision of him just sort of
yeah.
stumbling and like sort of prodding the ball towards the byline. It was bizarre.
He got played through, didn't he? I think he got played in behind Richard Keogh.
Yeah.
He must have been 10, 15 yards clear of Richard Keogh, 1-on-1 with the keeper. And all he had to do was literally, I think the keeper had virtually stepped to one side, so all he had to do was roll it in. And he went to chip the keeper. I think he's got it about 1.5 feet off the floor.
Yeah.
It was going wide, and the keeper's just picked it up and just
And fallen over. Yeah.
Yeah, it was cracking.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like it. But then obviously he went and scored against us last season at Oldham. I was sat on the side of the stand actually where he ran over, and I don't think he actually came into the stand, but he was very, very close, and he nearly started a riot there. That was a right laugh. And that was the game, if I remember, that signalled the end of John Askey, if I remember rightly. So he left not long after that game. It was a dark time there, but obviously he never got past us on Wednesday and won the game. Anthony Mancini scoring the winner. He's been in and out this season. His medical record's been well documented. Theoretically, a lot of fans think he should be starting every week. It may not be the case because of his history. But Danny, I'll come to you first. Is that the sort of performance that we've been missing since the start of last season when he was at his peak?
100%. I think when I spoke to Lenny, he said that that was the most complete performance he's had in a Pools shirt. I'm not sure I would go that far, but I think that is as close to 100% as we've seen from him since his injury that he picked up in the middle of last season. I think apart from maybe the Ebbsfleet game where he scored that
Got
worldie,
that belter, yeah, I remember that.
I think that is the best performance that we've seen from him in well over about 6 to 8 months.
Yeah, I think that's enough. I think certainly since Lenny's come here, I don't think he's seen that sort of performance that we know Mancini can bring.
However,
And
I do think that he's been getting better and better and better from when he came in against Tamworth. I think it was that he made a start.
yeah,
Then
that was the cup game,
that was
wasn't it? The
yeah,
midweek game where he changed pretty much the entire side. Yeah,
yeah. And then,
he's certainly getting sharper. That is the case. And with 10 days now until Barnet, like it's the sort of break where he might be able to start again against Barnet because he's had the rest.
yeah, definitely. I think he probably needs that as well. He needs that break because we never know if his muscle will go again or if he'll have to come off after 20 minutes. So it'll be nice for him to get about 10 days of rest into him, get himself fully recovered. Because I still think Adam Campbell's a good few weeks away, isn't he? So
It was a groin injury, as I remember. Lenny said he said several weeks at the time, which would imply maybe it's a couple of months, few months, rather than just a few weeks. So that is true. And to be fair, with that Tamworth game, the one that was should have been 10 days time, I think Tuesday. It
yeah,
was a Tuesday night game coming up. Obviously, they're in the cup. That's been postponed. So we don't have a Tuesday game until the rearranged Tamworth game, and that means that we've got a week between each game until mid-February, which not just for Mancini, but should provide a good break for the rest of the squad as well. You agree, James?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, just going back to Mancini, I think you look at that Pools team, obviously with Campbell injured, we've obviously relied heavily on Joe Gray and obviously Manny this season to sort of bail us out at times, I think. But you look on Mancini on the surface, and I don't know if you guys went to that game, the first pre-season game where he was on trial. I think it was Middlesbrough, if I'm not wrong. There was people screaming for him to be signed at half time, and it's evident.
He scored 2 goals in the first half, didn't he?
Just it might not have been even him. It might have been Chris Ray who scored in the first half in that, to be honest. But he's one of them players where you look at him and he can be out of the game for 95% of it, but the 5% that he does give, you think, what on earth? Where's it come from? Um, and I think that Oldham game was he sort of set himself a bar of where he should be because every single person at Pools knows how capable he is of being arguably one of, if not the best player in that league on his day. And the goal to seal the win, to have that composure, just to dink it over the defender's foot and then finish it. It's just ridiculous, and to not even celebrate like it's anything is mental. But everyone knows how capable he is, and like I say, he's probably going to benefit from a big rest. As probably a lot of the squad are, to be totally honest. I mean, going back to Joe Gray, he's had a fantastic few weeks. He's obviously not scored as much as we probably would have hoped. But there's a few players that do look a little bit tired, but not run into the ground as they have done before. But a nice rest will probably do the squad good.
Yeah, we've mentioned Gary Medina in passing. Obviously, his goal at Gateshead, he scored twice in that game. Is he looking better and better? Is there a case that two up top, the same thing? Is there a case that two up front is the way forward with Manny D and Medina up front, or is it preferable to have the pace in and around one of those rather than having the two up top?
I mean, for me personally, I think they sort of complemented each other a little bit. To be fair, I thought they were linking well with Mancini and Gray. Creating chances and then holding the ball up as well, which brings the other players into the game more importantly. And I think with Manning up front on his own, as he has been most of the season, he's not had the chance to really to hold that up and play it into someone and then get himself back in. Whereas if you've got Medina up alongside him, it's changes the total context of the game itself. But they are quite they've got a lot of things that they are quite similar with. The two big strikers and sometimes playing someone smaller and faster off a big target man. It complements the team. But I don't know if Danny agrees with me there. But I think they did sort of had a little bit of a link together on in the Oldham game, which you could see hopefully coming together. But long way off, I think being perfect.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Medine was what surprised me the most with how sharp he was with little flick-ons and just turning the ball around the corner. I think that was the big one for me. When I saw them two up top, I thought it was going to be hoof it up to them, head it down to Mancini to Gray. But at the same time, I think we need to be very mindful that that probably won't work against a more footballing side. I think the conditions were massively impacting how the game played out. It did turn into more of a head tennis at times, which I think, as much as it suits our front line, it also suits our back line as well, with Parks and Waterfall. So I think in games like that, maybe when you play the lesser footballing sides, like a Tamworth, a Braintree, teams like that, who are going to be scrapping for a point and maybe going a bit more direct, I think that is probably the way to go. I think in the meantime, when you're playing a Gateshead, when you're playing a York, it probably just helps to have somebody extra behind them, just in case.
Yeah, it's a fair point there. Moving on slightly, the transfer window is open for EFL clubs again as of New Year's Day. Obviously, being a non-league, we don't have a transfer window; it just shuts in. I think it's March, sometime like that. We've already seen the impact the EFL clubs can have on the National League in the last couple of days. We've had Gateshead basically decimated. Three of their top players have gone. Callum Whelan, the latest one, he's gone to Carlisle. Owen Aseni's made the move to St Mirren, and it's Ben Radcliffe, isn't it? I was going to say Ben Hinchcliffe there, but I think he's the goalkeeper at Stockport. Ben Radcliffe has his loan expired, and I think he's moved to Crawley. So they've been decimated. We're looking at Josh Stones, who played against us a few days ago for Oldham. His loan looks to be coming to an end, and he's moving to York for £350,000. Didn't realise teams in this league had that much money, even York. But is there any worries about any of our players potentially going north? I mean, the obvious candidate would probably be Manny Desirue. I think Anthony Mancini, if he can prove his fitness, might be another one. But realistically, can you see anyone going? I'll start with you, Danny.
The only person really that I can see garnering Football League interest, well, there's two. I think Similarly with Mancini, but for a completely different reason, is Dan Dodds. I think if he gets a run of games, we know what he can do at right back. Again, probably far too good for this league at right back. Probably on his day when he's fully fit and playing comfortably, one of the better fullbacks in the division. And also Joe Gray. I think you look at the amount of games he's played at such a young age. I could see that sort of being a big talking point for a lot of football league clubs because he's still very, very young. He's still got lots of room to grow. We've seen over the last 18 months he's been getting better and better and better. So I think that could be a potential punt that a football league club could take. With Manny D, I'm not really that worried because 30-year-old, not really proving it in the football league. I think for any team to do that, it would be one of the more relegation threatened sides who are probably a little bit more desperate for goals.
No, that's a fair point, James. You concur?
Yeah, I completely agree there, to be fair. I mean, you look at the squad, we're not blessed with a massively young, talented squad. You know, we are relying on a lot of older bodies, as a lot of the teams are in this league, to be fair. Um, but you look at Joe Gray, and as Dan said, you know, for a football league club, in a couple of years' time, you can see him being a massive asset. I think we've been blessed. I say blessed it is a very loose term. I think we were sort of lucky that we started the season so bad because a lot of players would have been picked up a lot sooner. I think if Mancini had got a long run of games and stayed fit, I think he'd have been gone probably the first minute of the transfer window opening. So do I worry about Mancini? A little bit, but not hugely. I think the summer's the real test of when this squad shows where it's at. You know, it's as Dan said. You know, Manny's been in the football league and proven he can do it, but not hugely. You know, he's not a renowned football league name, and you know we're sort of lucky in that sense. I think there's been a couple of times where it's come to transfer windows and it's been linked here and there, and you worry about it, but nothing's ever really happened. But Joe Gray for me, like Danny says, you know, is for a football league club in a couple of years' time is ridiculous because everybody can see his potential is there. His work rate is ridiculous. You know, he just doesn't stop from minute one, and every time he goes off, he's flat on his feet as he goes off the pitch, and you know, it's testament to himself. I think you look at the loans we've got as well. I think you look at Brad Young. Is he good enough for this level? I don't know. Will he make it at Leicester? I wouldn't have entirely thought so, especially with with Stolishchik getting that run now as well. So
Fair
where
play
he,
to him as well, obviously making his Premier League start against Liverpool on Boxing Day. That was it's good to see like players who have been here in the past, obviously at a young age and so on. They're doing well at high league, so good luck to him.
it's weird, isn't it? I mean, you look at the keepers that we went down with. Obviously, you've got Stolishchik and Killip, who you look at them and Killip's starting for Barnsley now. Stolishchik starting for Leicester. I mean, how unlucky are you to get your first two games against Liverpool and Man City? You know, it's
That's a fair point.
it's mad. But you look at some players on the surface and think, you know, they're not good enough, and then they surprise you by playing well for your Barnsleys and starting for Leicester, which I don't think anyone would have expected from a Pool's perspective. Stolishchik to be Leicester's interim number one, you know. So it's certainly mental. But obviously going back to Gateshead as well, obviously losing three of their best players. I feel like if you're a Gateshead fan, you feel like you're sort of rinse and repeat at the minute, aren't you? You know, it's gets to January, your good players go, you finish the season all right, you'll probably end up at Wembley, and then you start again next season and go again, which isn't great from their perspective, but do we care? Not really, you know.
Fair point. Um, is there, again, I stress, there's no transfer window. If we want to buy players after January, we can do. But if we choose to strengthen in January, is there a particular position on the pitch that you think needs strengthening above all others, potentially? Danny, I'll start with you.
There's two for me that I think could probably do with some legs. One of them is another winger. I think Rashawn Matherin going back to Palace. That's a big one. And also Loa, maybe not setting the world alight. Would it be nice to have maybe a pair of younger legs to come off the bench as well? Possibly. And the other place I think could be midfield because you look at the midfielders we've got. Greg Sloggett struggling with injury issues this season. He's very on and off. You got Nicky Featherstone who probably can't play every game at his age. If he can, brilliant, because he's still, in my opinion, playing very, very well.
It,
And then
this could possibly be, sorry, but this could possibly be Featherstone's best season at the club. And to say that at the age that he's at, the fact that he is basically, as you say, playing every game, and he is a reliable head in that midfield
and coaching at the same time.
and coaching at the same time, but absolutely right. He's not really had this sort of recognition from a lot of fans. I mean, a lot that sit around me, they know who they are, who haven't really rated him that much over the years. And he has had his problems before, but this season he just seems to have settled into a consistency. And you do need players in a squad where you know you'll get 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 every week. And if he keeps doing that, and as long as his fitness doesn't obviously go downhill, he's very much a big part of the squad. Also, as well, before we continue on the subject of Loire Loire, that incident in stoppage time, that deserves all the credit in the world. That was absolutely superb. I couldn't
That's
stop
deserving of
laughing.
his contract on its own.
Oh,
That's
that deserves another. Yeah, absolutely, it does. Like I said as well at the time, it wasn't just the fact that he did it, which was brilliant on its own. It's the fact he didn't even get a card for it either. It was the most blatant foul, the most cynical foul you've ever seen in your life, and he didn't get a card. It was absolutely hilarious.
I don't know. Was it their number 19? I don't know. He didn't get a second yellow. Did you see in the second half? I think it might have been Sharon got past him and he dragged him back. And I'm like, how
Was
did he
that
not?
near the dugouts?
No, I think it was just past the centre circle.
Oh.
But
To be
yeah,
fair, not the keeper, the referee. There were a few occasions where he was handing out cards for virtually nothing, but then there were incidents like Loire Loire and like the one you mentioned there, and he seemed to forget where his cards were. It was very odd.
I agree. But
that.
sorry,
Oh,
Danny.
go on, James. No, go on.
Just going back to Featherstone briefly. Sorry. I know he divides opinion for a lot of fans. But I think as a centre mid, he's something completely different to what we've got. I think you've got Sharon and Hunter who will work their socks off and cover every single blade of grass. Featherstone plays the game like he doesn't need to move out the centre circle, and he brings that sort of calmness that I think the side needs at times. We're not the most beautiful football playing side in the league, and we'll never profess to be in it. But I think he brings that calmness that the squad needs. And you look at it last season when he came back, and I think it was a Boreham Woodie's first game. We lost, I think it was 1-0, but he was by far and away the best player on the pitch. He was just so calm, kept the ball moving, kept everything tidy, and divides opinion for a lot of fans. There's times where we've all probably said he's not good enough anymore, and then he'll go and put in, a 9 out of 10 performance in the next game, and then totally change our minds again. So, yeah, bit of a crazy one with Featherstone, but I think he's a good head to have probably around the change room as well. So yeah, hopefully sticks around for a little bit.
Announce his testimonial as well.
Yes.
I don't know where that. I mean, I know he left for like a 2-month period or something like that, but he's been here over 10 years now. He very much deserves it. So Danny mentioned midfielder and a winger. Is there anyone in particular for you, James? You think if we can strengthen, or if we do want to strengthen?
If we do, yes. I mean, I completely agree with the winger. Like Danny said there, with Matherin going back to Palace, it sort of limits the options that we have got. The Walois 30, I think he turned 34 the other week.
Yeah, he's certainly in his 30s. Yeah, I think that's about right.
Yeah, you look at a lot of sides that we face in this league, and they've got one or two wingers who are so nippy, and they'll get in behind every single time, or they'll try and run at the man. Where I think we're sort of missing that direct approach at times. Mancini, yes, provides it. Joe Gray, yes, provides it, but will they always play in the same game? I don't know. So I think a direct wing is, a good call to have. Centre mid-wise, again, you look at the legs that are in the midfield, and as Danny's said there as well, Sloggett's not been blessed with, an injury-free season. Has he impressed me when he has played? I can't say he has. I look at a couple of games and I think he's just a bit sloppy. I think one of his first touches the other day, chased it down the byline that went out for a throw-in. So I've not massively been impressed with him, but I do like Sharon and Hunter. I think they do sort of complement each other. They are quite similar in a lot of the things they do, but they put in a shift. In this league, you don't have to be pretty, you don't have to be fantastic. As long as you work hard, put in a shift, putting a few naughty tackles every now and then. I think every team needs needs that player, is going to take a yellow card for the team just to, to put it up another team, if you will, So
Anyone who's listened to previous episodes will know that I'll go to bat for Nathan Sharon every week because he's absolutely fantastic every week. He's reliable. He's played every game. He is very, very good in that midfield. Hunter started the season well. Obviously, he got the opener. Well, he got the winner on the opening weekend, and then there was that sending off. I think it was Walking, because I know half of our team got sent off at various points at the start of the season. I think his red card was at Walking. And from that point on, when he came back in, he wasn't the same player as he was. I think he just lost that momentum a little bit. But there's certainly something in there. And Halifax fans seem to think he was good for them. And then obviously he had the injury as well that kept him out. But yeah, I suppose, if reinforcements anywhere, I think winger and midfield certainly are probably the two there. Moving on to the future fixtures, we mentioned already that the fixtures are falling on Saturdays and there's weeks between, and we've got a lot of time to recover. Looking at the fixtures, our next 5 games are all on Saturdays, so consecutive Saturdays, so there's a lot of time between each game there. And then we have 4 games in a 2-week period and that includes the rescheduled against Tamworth. So looking at the next few, Barnet away, we've already spoken about. Wealdstone away, Woking at home, Braintree away, and Sutton away are our next 5. So it's there. You mentioned we have a more favourable fixture list now, if you don't count Barnet. But even Barnet are out of form, to be fair. How many do you think that we're going to get from that? Danny, we'll start with you.
Well, I think it's always a tough one, Barnet, because you look at the team that showed up against us at our place. I think we played pretty much a picture perfect game against them. We sat in, counter attacked well. So I would like to think a point out of that. I mean, in an ideal world, it's 3 points out of the rest of the games, 3 points every week. So I think a point against Barnet and 3 points of the rest of the games. But we know that's probably unlikely to happen. So say out the next 4 or 5, we get 2 draws and the rest wins. I think everybody would be very, very happy with.
Yeah, I think something else to consider as well in that run that 4 of those 5 games are away.
Yeah.
We've got 2 away games coming up next. Then we're at home the end of January, and then we've got another 2 away games. We've also got 3 home games in February in the space of 7 days. So that's the rescheduled one against Tamworth on a Tuesday, then Maidenhead at home on the Saturday, and then Altrincham home on the Tuesday again. So James, just before you answer, I thought I'd pop that one in there 'cause 4 of those games are away from home.
I mean, as an ideal world, as a Pools fan, you look at away games and the first thing you think is don't lose. Basically, at least get a point on the board. And with Barnet, it's a hard fixture to start with in this run. But you look at it and you think if you don't lose that, you build yourself a platform because you look at the games that follow that and you think, yeah, you should be picking off 3 points for majority of them teams. Obviously, Sutton's not the easiest game in the world as we've seen. They're proven to be a big side in the past. Obviously the home game sort of should hopefully set the bar for another cracking game with them. But you look at that run and you're pretty confident that Pools can get like you say, a good amount of points from it. And not losing is the main thing. An away game point is a good point regardless. But you want 3. Most of them. Barnet, like I say, is not the easiest start, so you've got to take it a game at a time, I suppose. But I think what we need to start and do this second half of the season is make the Vicar Fortress again. You want teams not looking forward to coming here, which get the fans back on side. Get good crowds in again and get the feel good factor back about the club. Because the longer a good run goes on, the more confident you're going to be about finishing in and around the playoffs at the end of the season. And the younger fans will start coming back in their droves, as they have before, which I know some people aren't a fan of, but they make a good atmosphere at the home games and things like that. And it's just about making the Vic strong again, like it was in that promotion season. There's games where you look at and you think, we couldn't lose, and for all the fans weren't there, for 99% of the season. You look at the start of the following season, the first season back in the AFL, it was rocking. The atmospheres were ridiculous. The AFL Cup game against Rotherham was insane. and probably one of the best I've experienced myself at pools. So, like you say, it's just about getting points on the board. Don't like you say, don't lose an away game. It is a starting point because there's games that we went in at the start of the season and think we're going to get a good hiding there. We're going to get a good 3-4 nil hiding, and then you look at it now and it's totally flipped. And there's sort of I'd say an expectation from pools fans to at least get a point now. So yeah, hopefully the prove us right.
Yeah, I remember that Rotherham game. That I was studying in Manchester at the time. I had to come back home for other reasons, but while I was home, it was football, so you might as well. And the atmosphere that night, particularly when we went 2-1 up, was was ridiculous. I mean, I know it was a night game. Night games, you tend to get better atmospheres on the night time. But it was outstanding that game, and we were that close to beating another League One side because we'd already beaten a few that season, and getting into the final. And then obviously it's a nice little Wembley trip for us all. Don't know if I could afford that, like, because that was the same season we went to Crystal Palace as well, and we had to go there from Manchester. That was a right laugh to organise. Um, but yeah, you mentioned as well of there was no one in this ground when we got promoted for, as you said, 99% of the season. That game against Bromley as well, that was the playoff eliminator before we had to go to Stockport afterwards. And we had a certain amount of people in for that. And even that made a difference with how quickly we started that game. And it was as if the ball was getting sucked into the net every time. And you find that a lot of grounds these days. There's a lot said for Anfield as one example where the atmosphere may not be great, but the atmosphere becomes great when the club needs it to be. And I've always felt that's very much the same with Hartlepool. Like if there's an incident, for example, where an opposition player might rile someone up, or if there's a bit of an injustice with the referee, the crowd reacts to that, and it almost sucks the players towards the opposition goal as much as anything else. And if we can keep that up for the rest of the season, again, not if you do it for 90 minutes, fantastic. But if we can do it when it's needed in games, if we're 1-0 down, if it's entering a crucial stage and we can sort of get the lads going, you never know what we can achieve.
Completely agree. Yeah, it's one of them things, isn't it? You look at some of I don't know if you look at some of the games that we've had where we may be chasing the game in the later stages, we nick a goal back, and the players start putting in a few good tackles, and I don't know, the full northwest corner will be up, and it's just about getting the players up for it because there's times where you've come away from pools matches, and we've all done it, and we'll hold our hands up and say, "I'm not going back." But yeah,
Yeah, my granddad says it. My granddad's been saying it every week for the last 2 decades, and that's only in the time I've been gone.
I mean, it naturally sucks you in, and I think Danny will agree. As much as you'll get home and you'll be stewing on it for hours, you'll wake up the next day and think, well, it can't be anywhere, so I'll just go again. And they suck you in, don't they? They drag you back.
They
That's
absolutely
yeah,
do. Yeah,
spot
Dan.
on. I tell you what, the games that make you feel like that. Sutton this year, for example, that was a big one. Harrogate, when we overturned, I think it was a 2-0 at half time in the Football League.
Insane.
And I just think it's them games when you come away, you're thinking, oh, maybe it won't happen this season. And then it's always like something like that will happen a week or two later. And then it's just everybody's back up again. But I was speaking to a lot of people after the game on New Year's Day, and it just feels like there's something different this year compared to the last couple. And I don't necessarily know what it is, but it just feels like the team are a lot more up for it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, yeah, I mean we've given credit to Lenny Lawrence as well, but the men behind him in Anthony Limbrick and
Yes.
Gavin Skelton, particularly Limbrick because he does more with the media than Skelton does, and we've seen his passion for the club's come across, his passion for his new surroundings, and his passion for the fans has come through. And if I mean we've said on the show before potentially could take over at the end of the season if Lenny decides to step away, or he'll continue supporting in the background. But having people like that who are passionate about the club and the area, it may well carry us forward. And if worst comes to worst, we don't go up this season. If Limbrick does take over, it could put us in a good place to start next season.
It could tell you who that reminded me a lot of with coming to the area and being passionate about it straight away. It's the same way that you think back to Dave Challoner. And I know that name is a little bit touchy with some people, but he came in and he absolutely adored the area, and that transpired with fans. And I think Limbrick could be the same sort of mould of absolutely loves the area, absolutely adores the fan base. And when them two things happen, the fan base absolutely adores the manager.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true. Yeah, James.
completely agree with that. I think you see some faces that have come in the past, and I think Darren Sal will be a massive inclusion in this. They genuinely look like they don't care a single thing about the fans or anything like that, and every interview is just rinse, repeat, control, and just the same thing week after week after week, and nothing changes. They'll say, "Oh, we'll do this, we'll do that," and nothing changes. Um, but Chalner, you look at him on the surface, and I don't know if you were working at pools on the turnstiles at the same time Chalner came in, Jack, but he came in and he had a little chat with a couple of even just the turnstile operators when I was doing it, and just to take a couple of minutes, just to have a little chat about the club and what his plans were and things like that. For all of him, it might not seem a massive deal, but to someone who's been going to pools for years, it's for a manager to do that's massive. And my one of my friends, I won't say his name. One of my friends gets on really well, got on really well with the Challoner family. Big fans, and they always used to have a night at games and stuff like that, and even in Millennium Square and stuff. And even after the final in Bristol, just to see him come out to see some of the fans, on the night and just taking that time. I don't think you'll see that again for a while. But this appointment feels different. You know what I mean? With Limerick coming in, I feel like he just gets the club. He gets what we're about, and the players are sort of demonstrating that trust back. I think, which they've probably not been confident in doing for Sal. I think a lot of the players with Sal, I think they were just playing for the sake of for the career, but just didn't really look interested under him. But you look at this now, and there's an understanding, I think, and I hope you guys agree. There's an understanding of their job roles now. They all know what they're doing. I think, which is something that we didn't really see in the first half of the season.
Yeah, that's true. To be fair to Chalner, I mean, you sort of indicated it at the start there, Danny, where he said, his name may, cause a few things in the fan base, but I mean, realistically, he did so much good for the club while he was here. I mean, you've mentioned the turnstile story there, obviously the promotion being the big one. He could have, we could have gone places. I mean, Stockport obviously have more resources, the better attendances. They're in the city, it's a better club from that point of view. But he still could have done a lot with us if things had turned out differently. And it's he'll always be welcome back in my eyes because, like I say, he's done so much good for us. That even and to, like I say, we have no inside knowledge of anything that's gone on. So, um, whatever happened there, whoever's fault it may be, it still doesn't erase all of the good that he did for the club, as we've all mentioned. And the same will go for anyone else in that position, whether it be players, managers, anyone else. Anything that may happen towards the end or any bad things don't always and should never really overshadow the good things they did for the club. Um, that being said, in the case of some, you kind of need some good things, otherwise everyone's only going to remember you for the bad things, as is the case with Darren Sarll, unfortunately, how it turned out. But hopefully, the new management team take us to some good times in the future. And as I'll make the joke pretty much every week, the playoff final at Plymouth this season, when we get through and they change it to Plymouth instead of Wembley, I'm sure we will all have a good time going down to Home Park. Well, thank you very much there, gentlemen. That was very entertaining. And hopefully we'll have you back at some point in the future. James, hopefully sooner rather than later for you, because I think you'll be quite busy come the end of the season, given the news. But yeah, like I say, fingers crossed for a nice run towards the end of the season. And hopefully, I'll have some very special news to share in the next week or two regarding someone who's very kindly agreed to lend us his time. So thank you very much, gentlemen, and we'll hopefully see you later on in the season.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jack.
See you later on.
Thank you.